In this video, you're going to learn about a partition action and what happens when two co-owners of real estate disagree and they need to involve the legal system to force that sale. Elijah Underwood from Underwood Law here in Sacramento is going to share with us the process of initiating a partition action and how it all works.
And I'm gonna share with you guys some information about selling houses when co-owners disagree. As I mentioned, I'm an attorney, but I'm also, one of you. I'm a licensed real estate broker. I'm a real estate investor. I'm currently serving as the president of the 2030 Club here in Sacramento, which is a nonprofit children's charity. The firm has 4 offices: Sacramento, Oakland, Newport Beach, in LA. And we've got clients throughout California. So we represent clients from San Diego to Shasta counties. I'm here to talk about something called a partition action. Has anybody ever heard of that? Other than Ben, of course.
I was going to say, I've heard of it, and only through you. It was like really mind-opening and mind-blowing for me.
Right on. Yeah. Okay, that doesn't count. Okay, so I'm gonna guess no, and that puts all of you in kind of the 99%. I've talked to real estate agents who have been in the business 10, 20, 30, 40 years and never heard of partition action. So you guys are in the vast majority. But so let's talk about what's a partition action. The first thing is, it is not lot splits. So it has nothing to do with splitting a lot. Apparently you could split a lot in California. That's not that interesting. I think that's all you kind of need to know about that. Instead, it's something else. It is another way that real estate gets sold in California. So for those of you who are familiar with short sales or REO sales, probate sales, and divorce sales, a partition action is just the last tool in the toolbox. It's like any of those other sales. It's just the last one in the series. So what is a partition action? It is a court-ordered sale of real estate. That's, after all, why I'm here. I'm a lawyer. I'm involved in the legal process. And, it does require a lawsuit for it to occur. But before we kind of get into some of the high level technical aspects of, the law, the partition law, let's kind of bring it down for a minute. So, tell me if you guys have heard this story before. A girl meets a boy, and they think that they're going to be together forever, right? And they are dating, and they buy a house together, but they don't get married, right? They think they're gonna buy a house together and live happily ever after. But after living together for a while in this co-owned house, they break up, and she goes to live with her mom, and he finds a new girlfriend, and now he is living in this house, this jointly owned house, with his new girlfriend, while the ex-girlfriend is, she's somewhere else, but she's still on the mortgage, and she's still an owner. But because they didn't get married, she can't go to family court. And if, to get divorced, right, there was no marriage. Instead, if she wants to sell to get out, she has to get him to agree normally, right? But because we've seen such inflation with housing prices the last several years, it's really hard to get people to buy out their ex, right? You could have a little house in Midtown that sold for, I don't know, 300-400 in 2018 be worth 700, 800, 900 today, right? So to get the ex-boyfriend to buy out the ex-girlfriend, he would have to take out a loan and qualify for that, $800,000 mortgage, right? And sometimes the ex-boyfriend says, I just don't want to sell. I want to stay. I don't want to pay you out. I don't want to deal with you anymore. And, that's it. So now if she can't get him to agree to sell or buy her out, she's in a place that I like to call hell, right? She is stuck. She can't get him to sell. She's a co-owner of the property. She's responsible for the mortgage. If he refuses or fails to pay the mortgage on time, it affects her credit, right? So she's in a tough spot, right? She can't really go forward or backward, right? So it's a bad situation for her, right? Okay, so let me, give you another for instance. You have two brothers. They're so similar. Some would call them twins, but they're very different, right? One of them is very successful. He wins at whatever he does. The other one, not so much, right? And then one day they inherit mom and dad's, $3 million house in East Sacramento, right? And it's fully paid off. And for brother number two, it's a great day, right? He's got a beautiful house he can live in, rent free, and he's pumped, right? But for brother number one, our successful brother, it's not such a good deal. Yeah, it's it's all paid off, but somebody still has to pay the taxes. Somebody still has to pay the insurance if it needs repairs because mom and dad didn't really do anything in the last 10 years. Brother number two is not going to do that. It all falls on brother number one, right? On top of that, that $3 million house would mean that brother number one inherits about $1.5 million, right? If that house gets sold, he's going to hit a nice payday, right? So brother number one, again, goes to brother number two and says, hey, listen, I don't mind you living in the house, but I'd really like to get paid out. That $1.5 million could be a lot of things, right? Could pay off his own mortgage, could put some money away for a child's college education fund, stock his own retirement account, right? Maybe his wife worked for Google or Facebook or something and got laid off, and $1.5 million would be really nice right about now, right? But once again, one of the owners wants to sell and the other one doesn't, right? So again, brother number one is stuck. And what happens is brother number one, comes to you and says, hey, listen, I'd like to sell this. And, as a realtor, you cannot list the property unless both owners or all owners want to sell, right? So, they're stuck, right? And because you have to tell the ex-girlfriend or brother number one, listen, I can't help you, that fish, it just swims right out of your net, right? You're never going to close that sale. That person is gone unless they can figure it out. And let's be honest, there's not going to be a whole lot of reasoning going on with our ex-boyfriend or brother number two, right? So there's a hole in your net and you're losing that sale, right? But what if I was to tell you there was a way that sale could close, that house could get sold and could be listed on the market? Might be kind of interesting, right? So let's talk about a partition action. What is a partition action? A partition action is a forced sale of real estate where one of the owners wants to sell and another one doesn't. It's very simple. It has basically just 4 parts. I file a lawsuit. The non-selling party has the right to buy out the property at the appraised price. If they're unable to do so, the court orders the sale, and the court will bring on a realtor or somebody called a partition referee to sell it. The house gets sold and the equity gets distributed, right? So, let's be honest, our brother number two is not going to qualify for a $3 million mortgage, right? Or $1.5 million mortgage to pay out his brother. Our ex-boyfriend, who can't manage to make the mortgage payments on time, odds are that his credit is not going to allow him to refinance that property, especially at whatever 7.25 or whatever it is, right? So that house is most likely going to go to a sell. And at some point in the legal process, the judge is going to say to me, hey, Eli, who do you want to sell this property? And I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe I can find a realtor who'd be interested in that listing, right? And I just hand it off to the realtor, and the realtor goes and does realtor things, right? And the property gets sold, and the realtor gets paid, a normal commission. And so what I do is I get realtors appointed to sell real estate. Here's a order from a judge here in Sacramento appointing Franco Garcia to be the referee for a case. Here's an order from a case here in Sacramento appointing a realtor to sell real estate. Here's an order from a court in like the Sonoma area appointing a realtor to sell real estate, right? So I get realtors appointed to sell real estate in California. Now, some of you are probably thinking to yourself right now, well, Eli, this sounds way too good to be true. Everybody knows that you lawyers, you love to argue. That's how you make your money. If it was so simple, you lawyers would have nothing to argue about. And where's the fun in that? Well, it's true. There is one known defense in California to a partition action. It's something called a waiver. In other words, if the parties agreed prior to purchasing it that they would never partition the property, then that partition could be stopped. But our two brothers probably aren't having an in-depth discussion of the waiver of the right to partition. And our ex-boyfriend and girlfriend are not talking about a lot of things, including a waiver of the right to partition. So from my experience, it's relatively rare. And what's interesting about this is if it's real estate, it can be partitioned. So I am partitioning millions of dollars of apartment buildings, vacant land, farmland, commercial real estate, industrial real estate throughout California, right? $10 million apartment buildings, right? Multi-million-dollar vacant land that's developable, right? Warehouses. If it is real estate, in addition to our, single family detached, ranch style home, if it is real estate, it can be partitioned in California. And so sometimes people will ask, well, Eli, what if it's held in a partnership? Well, that's cool. What you can do is you can dissolve the partnership. And what the law says is, that anybody who wants to dissolve the partnership when it's no longer reasonable or practicable can, and the remedy is to sell or partition the partnership property once it's dissolved, right? So that's what you do there. One thing that's really interesting about partition actions is there is a right to recover attorney's fees. In other words, the law allows somebody forcing the sale to recover their attorney's fees if the judge deems it appropriate, right? And so a lot of times, people will come into these cases and they'll try to be really difficult. And I'll let them know, listen, if you really persist with being difficult, you're just making the case stronger that I'm going to get my attorney's fees at the end. So instead, let's cooperate. Let's get the sale done faster, right? And that's a very effective tool. So some of you are probably, familiar with other lawyers in, Sacramento or the region, and you're saying you probably refer work to them and say, well, Eli, why would I ever refer a client to you? And I guess I'd say, I don't know, don't you want somebody who's been there before? My firm is currently handling about 100 active partition matters throughout California. So, my experience is that most lawyers, maybe they have some partition experience, right? They might have done, I don't know, 5 or 6 in the last, 10 years. And I'll say, that's cool. We're handling about 100 right now, right? And it's kind of like anything. As realtors, I'm sure your first transaction wasn't super smooth, right? you didn't do it that efficiently. You probably, spun your wheels a lot, right? You took a lot of time to figure things out. And it's no different with lawyers. If they haven't done something for a while, or if it's their fifth one in 7 years, they're going to have to remember, oh, how does this work again? What am I supposed to do? Right. Whereas, with an experienced partition lawyer, we just go in and we've got a plan of attack, and we just tear through it. Right. We just do it as quickly as possible. Right. And so the value for you all as realtors is that you have probably talked to an ex-girlfriend who's had the situation. You've had brother number one come up to you and say, hey, listen, I have this issue with this real estate. Can you help me? And you've turned them away, right? And everybody knows that when somebody has a real estate problem, they probably talk to, 3 or 4 realtors, and they're looking for the realtor who has the solution. So if you're the realtor who knows the right tool to solve this problem, who knows that a partition action is the right thing for that individual, then you stand out, right? You become a trusted advisor. And then when it comes time to appoint a referee, and I ask my client, hey, which realtor do you want to use? They're very likely to say that realtor who referred me to you, they know about partitions. And I just say, that's cool, let's use them then, right? So as mentioned, the firm has about 12 people in it. We've got 5 lawyers right now. We're adding a 6th lawyer in September. We are doing partitions throughout California, and my firm is located in our Sacramento office in Doco. If anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. But otherwise, that is the presentation.
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
So, you mentioned that you were a real estate agent. Are you the one that currently sells the real estate for your firm now in those situations?
No, I do have my broker's license, but I have never used it. It's more something that I feel like adds value to my clients as a lawyer. So I only practice law. I've never listed any of these properties. I probably never would list them. I'd probably consider it to be a conflict of interest, frankly. But I kind of have it because I think I found that the clients are comforted by my familiarity with, just the real estate industry generally. And it helps me to kind of stand out from the crowd in that sense.
Yeah, so I think based off our earlier conversation too, so if you receive a referral for one of these types of cases, you recommend the referral agent to be the court assigned agent as well. Is that right?
Well, so yeah, let's talk about that. So, as realtors are fiduciaries for their clients, right? And I'm a lawyer, I'm a fiduciary for my clients. So my job is just to do the matter, to handle the matter the best that I can for my clients. So what I always do is I ask the client what they want, right? Because that's kind of what I see as my job. So I don't push any realtors on any clients. I don't try to play favorites. I just say, hey, client, who do you want to use? Right. But if that realtor is the one who referred me, they're going to stand out in, the client's mind. And I may even ask the client, hey, do you want to, use this realtor that gave the referral? Right. Because personally, I'm not, I mean, it doesn't benefit me or the firm to have, one realtor that I use for everything, right? It's actually the best thing for the firm is to work with as many people as possible. And it's not just, the good guy thing to do. It's also smart business and upholding my ethical duties as a lawyer to put the client's interest first by asking them their preference. So I really try to take a hands-off approach with that. And, if the client wants to use that realtor who referred them, then I'm all for it.
I had another question. So typically, where do your petition business come from for the firm? Meaning, is it, referred by a real estate agent, or do people just kind of walk in the office with a problem, or a corporation, or situations like that?
Yeah, so I think it obviously comes from referral business like this, right? Like doing presentations like this. I was sharing with Ben that, my website gets about, 8 to 9,000 clicks a month. So I have a heavy SEO presence. And I am very optimized for partitions, right? Because this is basically the only thing that the firm does. So I really, I don't do anything else. I turn away literally almost anything else that's not a partition. So I know a lot of the other real estate lawyers here in Sacramento, and I'll say, hey, listen, do you want these construction defect cases? Right? Do you want these, I don't know, people are always complaining about trees in their yard and their neighbors' trees. Do you want those cases? Do you want, people have issues with, the buyer, the seller didn't disclose this thing as part of the sale. I don't handle any of that. It literally, if it's not a partition, if it's not a partition, if it's not, doesn't come from if it's not a former client who I know and like, and asks me personally to help them again, or if it's not, like, sometimes we'll do some eminent domain work. If it's not in one of those categories, we don't touch it. We turn it away. So I turn away all sorts of business matters, real estate matters, literally almost anything that isn't a partition. I just don't touch. And other lawyers in Sacramento, they just know that I'm kind of the guy for partitions. And so people will refer that business to me too.
Got it. So who can't uh, benefit from a partition? Like, what type of scenario would you say, oh yeah, like that wouldn't, a partition wouldn't work in that, when two people don't want to sell? Can it be mother and daughter, or mother and child, father and child? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I have all versions of those. I have parents suing their children because they co-own things together. I have children suing their parents. Brothers and sisters, boyfriend and girlfriend, girlfriend and girlfriend. Nephews and cousins. Nephews and uncles. All kind of variations. People who buy Airbnbs together, right? Invest in Airbnbs, right? Like all kind of versions of this. If it's jointly owned and one wants to sell and the other doesn't, it basically is subject to partition.
So even husband and wife?
Well, so that's an interesting question. So if they're married, they have to go to family court. But here's kind of an interesting wrinkle. I have a number of cases right now where people were married, they got fully divorced, and they still own real estate together. And what the courts will say is, well, since you're divorced, you can't come into family court. You have to go get a partition separately. So I have a number of divorced couples where I'm doing partitions.
Wow.
Got it.
Yeah,
But
because
if they're,
they didn't address that property in their divorce decree.
Right. They just said, okay, we'll own this property 50-50. So then these people have the privilege of going through the legal system twice.
Wow, what a nightmare. That's interesting that you brought up the Airbnb thing. That's been a really hot investment over the last couple of years. And what we're seeing right now economically is everything that the Fed's doing to raise interest rates. They're trying to create strain on the economy to bring inflation down. So, people that were in a really good economic situation in 2018, 2019, even through COVID, I think we'll start to see a lot more of these partnerships, if you want to call them that, that kind of fall apart. If one party, does have a financial burden and they need that money, I think this is a really good opportunity for them to be able to access that, even if the other partner doesn't agree. So, yeah, I saw a ton of value in this, when we met and you gave me the presentation. And I think it's really good information. I think real estate agents need to know about it. They need to have a resource, because you never know what questions are going to come up when you're talking with clients and going on listing appointments and things like that. So
Yeah. And for sure, what I hear from, I don't know, like some of the savviest realtors is they say, you know what, I've had this happen to me. I've talked to this ex-girlfriend. I've talked to brother number one at a barbecue or a PTA meeting or at church or at, a game day watch party, right? I've talked to these people and told them that I couldn't help them or they're stuck. I'm going to go back and get their number and I'm going to call all these people and ask them if they're still going through this, and see if I can't let them know that there's a solution to their problem, right? So I've had a number of what I consider to be the savvier realtors who are like, yeah, I'm going to go back through my phone, I'm going to get that person's number and call them up, see if they're still struggling with this, and let them know there's a solution to their problem. So Eric's point, I think, was about what's my funnel, what's my lead flow. And I think for the realtors, like the funny thing to me is you already have all of these leads, right? These are not like new leads. These are leads you already have that you're just not converting, right? So that's really like the value is, it's not like, oh, I'm going to show you where all these new leads are. These people are already talking to you. They're already in your lives. You just are not converting, like, this bird that's already in your hand, so to speak. Yeah, cool. I hope you guys got value out of it. I kind of love sharing this with realtors because, like you said, it's something that I think all of us are experiencing in that people are not getting married as much anymore, right? It's just a fact. I think in like 1980, like something like 85% of all people between the ages of 20 and 40 were married. And in 2023, it's like less than 50%, right? So there's a huge swath of, and it's a generational thing of people who are living with their boyfriends or girlfriends and buying real estate together. And then it's like, well, they're like, well, I didn't want to get divorced in marriage, and they have these issues with those institutions, and that's cool. But they don't think about, well, what happens if they don't want to sell after the relationship's over, right? Like we're kind of living in different ways, but not kind of, prepared for what that looks like. And also, the baby boomers kind of moving on and leaving all this inherited property, and kind of people of our generation not knowing what to do with it when, their sister, maybe she didn't, life didn't work out the way that she wanted, and she's been living in that house for 7 years, and it's it's tough, right, to figure out how to work through that. How do you even begin? Is it a probate thing, right? What kind of a thing is it? What's the solution? And so sharing this information, this education is kind of very helpful for those types of people.
So this concludes our video. I hope you found it valuable. If you want Elijah's contact information, you can look down in the description. If you learned something or if you have any questions, please like the video and leave a comment, and I'll see you next time.